Good to have you with us here on this Monday edition of Ed Schultz News and Commentary. I'm probably the only person in Washington, D.C. that has decided to work for a living today. I've seen snow before. I've seen 2-3 feet of snow before, and you can walk through it and get to work. First of all, I just wonder if the District of Columbia would have had the trucks moving yesterday if the NFC-AFC championship game were not on. I mean, I don't know if that played into it at all. You know, everybody wants to stay home and watch football. The bars were sure full. Nobody had a hard time getting to them. But the streets, there just wasn't a whole lot of activity. Now, you would think that since there's 3 feet of snow and drifts galore, that the trucks would be out moving because people got to go to work on Monday. Nah, the federal government's off today. Lots of office buildings are closed. They're going to milk this baby for about 2 or 3 days. And I realize that a lot of side streets throughout the district aren't going to get touched for a few days. So it's going to be Hunker Down City Week is what it's going to be. Anyway, I don't know. It's just different in the Midwest, okay? Moving snow is not like moving a mountain, but whatever. I know they got the trucks because I've seen them. They just haven't been moving. All right, they call this the silly season. They call this the season where things get said that you just can't believe. And I think I could pick something out every day. Yesterday on CNN, Donna Brazile actually said she's not supporting Hillary Clinton. I about fell off the couch. She's the vice chair of the DNC. The Clintons run the DNC. The Clintons tell Debbie Wasserman Schultz what time she can have breakfast. The lot. Come on. You know, and now all of a sudden they're coming across saying, well, not really, not really. I don't buy that for a moment. And then there's, of all things, the president talking to Politico, giving this analysis about the race. Listen to this. Let me just say, if you'll notice the tracking of all the polling that has gone on the last 6 months, Bernie Sanders broke even and moved out in front of Hillary in Iowa and in New Hampshire when the media started treating him like a serious candidate and started giving him somewhere close to equal coverage. Now, listen to what Obama says. Obama says that Hillary has been scrutinized. Excuse me? On this podcast with Politico, he says that Hillary's just, been the front runner and people have been chipping away at her, and it's just really tough to be the front runner because there's more scrutiny. There is more love fest going on with Hillary Clinton in the mainstream media than any other candidate in the history of campaigns. Listen to this.
I think Bernie came in with the luxury of being a complete long shot,
right,
and just letting loose.
Right.
I think Hillary came in with the both privilege and burden of being perceived as the front runner, and as a consequence, where they stood at the beginning probably helps to explain why.
Do you feel like it's a little bit
language sometimes is different?
Do you feel like it's a little bit unfair to her, to some extent, the way?
Unfair to Hillary?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Did you hear that question? Do you think it's unfair to Hillary that Bernie's not getting any attention at all? Play the rest of it.
It's a little bit unfair to her, to some extent, the way this has been stacked?
Yeah, well, yes. But I think that Hillary's tough, and she has been through this before, and she could anticipate it. If you are a front runner, yep, then you are under more scrutiny, and everybody's going to pick you apart. And if you're...
And by everybody in 08, you meant you.
But if you think about it, after I won Iowa,
right,
then suddenly things are flipped. That's right. I go to New Hampshire and, Obama's looking kind of cocky. We need to knock him down. And the voters themselves start doing that.
Well, they didn't. She barely won New Hampshire, and the crying incident certainly had an effect on the female vote up in New Hampshire, and the rest is history. All right, now, I just find it utterly amazing. I wonder if the president's even paying attention to what's going on in this campaign and the inequality of coverage that's taking place. This isn't opinion. This is fact. It has been documented. It has been documented how little coverage Bernie has gotten. And it wasn't until he started to get somewhere near equal coverage and conversation by the mainstream media that the poll numbers in Iowa and in New Hampshire started to skyrocket for him. And now he leads Hillary by the biggest lead of 51-43 by a CNN ORC poll. All right, now we've got this conversation about Mayor Bloomberg. Mayor Bloomberg, Michael Bloomberg, media magnate, owns a lot of stuff, okay? Multi-billionaire and beyond. He's talking about running for president. He's thinking about an independent run. Someone needs to explain to me what states he's actually going to win and how this whole process is going to function. The only way I see Michael Bloomberg being the president of the United States, if there is complete dysfunction and it gets thrown to the Congress and by somehow he cash whips everybody and they like the idea of getting money in their pocket and then he ends up president. Now, that's rather outlandish, but come on, folks. This is another billionaire on an ego trip. Go ask Rudy Giuliani. Just because you think you can run New York doesn't mean people in this country are going to vote for you. He was smothered in the Republican primary in 2008, totally professionally embarrassed. Now he's on the rubber chicken circuit. Hell, he even spoke in Fargo, North Dakota not long ago. The fact is, Michael Bloomberg is not going to be president of the United States. This is an ego trip. He's trying to gum it up. And clearly, they're afraid of two people, and that's Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. And Bloomberg isn't going to win Kansas. Bloomberg isn't going to win Texas. Bloomberg isn't going to win California, a blue state. It isn't going to happen. It's not going to happen, okay? Now, I know that anything can happen in politics, but I think, that isn't going to go down because mathematically it doesn't work. All right. So this is Bernie Sanders giving the perfect response to Michael Bloomberg thinking he should be president of the United States, or he's thinking about running as an independent.
I think it would be very interesting if Donald Trump became the Republican candidate who was a multi-billionaire, and Michael Bloomberg became an independent candidate who is a multi-billionaire. And it will tell people what I have been saying for a long time is that this country is moving away from democracy to oligarchy, that billionaires are the people who are controlling our political life. That is not what, to my view, American democracy is supposed to be about, a contest between billionaires. If that takes place, I am confident that we will win it.
Absolutely. Bernie will be walking right into the White House. So I don't know what Bloomberg is thinking, but this is totally a billionaire ego trip. Where's the movement across this country calling for Michael Bloomberg to get in and to save the country as an independent candidate? What, could he draw 10 people at a rally in the middle of the country? It isn't going to happen. All right. This is Trump on the campaign trail on Saturday responding to the news that Bloomberg might jump in.
Then I'm going to have to deal against Hillary if she doesn't go to jail, or I'm going to have to deal against Bernie or somebody, or Bloomberg comes in, which would be great. I'd love to have him come in because I love the competition, frankly. I mean, it would be great if I'd love Bloomberg to come in.
So this is the silly season that's going on. This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary, brought to you by Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team. I'm working for a living. And by the way, tonight is the first show of the News with Ed Schultz on RT America. You can find it on Dish and Direct, 8 o'clock Eastern Time for 30 minutes, a wrap-up of the day's news. Stay with us. We're right back. Hey, folks, you've heard me talk about BioGreen Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, wegoted.com, or go to biogreenclean.com, www.biogreenclean, and order today. It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit. Good to have you with us here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary on this Monday edition. Endorsements rolling in. I don't know what it means that the Des Moines Register thinks that Hillary Clinton should be president of the United States. Actually, they have endorsed losers in the past. So I don't know what it means. This is Bernie Sanders responding to this stuff.
Well, I have a lot of respect for the Des Moines Register, but I think in every instance, we are more than capable of doing the job of President of the United States. When we talk about foreign policy, let us be very clear. One of the candidates running voted against this disastrous war in Iraq. Go to my website, go to YouTube, find out what I said in 2002, what I feared would happen. And it gives me no pleasure to tell you that much of what I feared would happen in terms of the destabilization of the region, in fact, did happen. Hillary Clinton voted the other way. In terms of domestic issues, the reason that our campaign is generating so much excitement is that, in fact, we are focusing on the issues the American people care about, and that is the decline of the American middle class, the fact that people are working longer hours for low wages, and almost all new income and wealth is going to the top 1%, and that income inequality is sustained by a corrupt campaign finance system.
That's where the American people are, the last part of that soundbite, all of the things that he's hitting on this campaign. Yet if you watch the mainstream media, my head's exploding yesterday on the couch waiting for the football games. I'm watching CNN, and I see Kevin Madden, who used to work for Mitt Romney, say that Bernie Sanders is an extremist and he's out of the mainstream. I'm going crazy. Listen to this. All of the things that Bernie just mentioned in that soundbite poll in the majority of what Americans want done when it comes to the issues in this country. For more on this, let's go to Katrina Vanden, Heuvel, owner and editor of The Nation magazine. Katrina, great to have you with us.
Thank you, Ed. The mainstream media, we're going to step back from this campaign, whatever happens, and we're going to better understand how the mainstream media has failed the people. First of all, last I checked, the airwaves belong to the people, but only in the last few months have the airwaves decided to turn their gaze, their lavish gaze, away from Donald Trump and decide, hey, maybe Bernie Sanders is a real candidate. This is foolish, this stuff that he's such an extremist. He is in the mainstream. His issues are in the mainstream of this country, and they haven't been heard because for too long the mainstream media has really failed to understand what is mainstream and give us a slice of America. Wouldn't say necessarily the 1%, but the 10%. So I think Bernie Sanders spoke powerfully, probably on the Des Moines Register, probably the Move On endorsement, maybe the Nation endorsement. We endorsed him 10 days ago. But the Move On endorsement in Iowa, if they have, I think they said 43,000 members, you got some serious ground troops there, because what goes on in Iowa, as your listeners may know, is a pretty Byzantine process. And the big number out of Iowa, Ed, 1681. That's the number of precincts. Can Bernie Sanders' campaign translate the enthusiasm into organization? We'll see.
They're pretty confident that they can. And the key here is why Iowa is so important to the narrative is that the mainstream media is out there already making the sales pitch, and that's exactly what it is. Mm-hmm. And the other progressives that were on the show that I was watching yesterday sat there and allowed Kevin Madden to get away with painting Bernie Sanders out of the mainstream. That infuriated me as much as anything. I don't know where Donna Brazile and Bill Press were. Bill Press is a friend of mine, but God, wake up, dude.
Ed, my head explodes often when I watch some of the TV. But here's the thing. The other narrative, so to speak, that's going around, and it's being peddled by a lot of good liberal commentators, is this idea of we got a candidate of the head and a candidate of the heart, a candidate of experience and a candidate of romance. Well, last I checked, experience is a real mixed blessing when fundamental judgments have been wrong and counterproductive. Bernie Sanders on the campaign trail laid that out, whether it's the decision to authorize the war in Iraq, whether it's, going light on regulating Wall Street and the banks, which ravaged our economy through recklessness, greed, and fraud. I mean, I think it's just a crazy narrative, and we got to take it on because we've seen calamities from those with great experience. It's time for some freshness in our politics.
There's no doubt about it. Now, if this narrative against Bernie, if by chance he loses Iowa, this narrative is only going to be hyped. Oh, you see, Bernie can't win. And so I think Iowa's crucial from that standpoint. I think New Hampshire is crucial. And if he wins, according to the latest numbers that are out, if he can mobilize and if he wins those two, the question is it a game changer? Not to put the cart before the horse, but you know what? There are strategists out there saying, okay, now what? What do you think?
I think Iowa and New Hampshire are critical game changers. No one's voted yet, Ed. Let's remember that. And voting changes momentum. Voting changes polling. I think the more time Bernie Sanders has to get his message out, listen, he's still introducing himself to thousands of people, and we just talked about how great the media has been in allowing him to get his message out without this crazy overline. He's too extreme. So I think South Carolina's probably still real tough. Nevada will be interesting. I think, we're seeing a division, Ed. You probably followed it, between labor leaders and the base of the labor movement. Nevada will be an interesting test case. So agree with you that Iowa and New Hampshire game changers, and a lot of work being done.
Speaking of Nevada, this is former President Clinton on the campaign trail talking about anger of the two candidates.
We got to tell people who think they may be lured by people that say this other guy's madder than she is. And that feels authentic. And besides, these slogans are easier to say. And I say that in no disrespect. I admire that.
What do you think of that?
What I think
Katrina?
is Bill Clinton. Listen, Ed, I was watching TV yesterday, too. Bill Clinton was on the Golf Channel. I mean, what he was doing, I don't know. He's the best talker in politics, though I don't agree with half of what he says. But what I think is that anger meme is so wrong. Bernie Sanders is saying America's in deep trouble. But he's also saying we have to mobilize people, young people, all people, to make the structural changes that are pressing and urgent, from climate change to soaring inequality, and that the failure to meet these challenges with proportionately outsized solutions risks a slow-motion slide into disaster. He is speaking with passion. That's what I think. And the ability, more the mainstream media or Clinton has to paint him as angry, it scares people. I noticed yesterday, I have to say, Bernie Sanders in Iowa speaking in a more modulated way. It is the case that in the last debate, it might have been one note, but he speaks with passion, because I think he understands the need to take this moment, this rigged system, upend it, and he has a strategy of change, mobilize millions of people to be with him and wind at his back. And that's what that ad he's just done is so interesting. It's really using those dulcet sounds of Simon and Garfunkel, calling on people to join him in a future you can believe in. It's really more about a movement, which is really something I think he needs to build on more and more.
Katrina, look forward to having you on the news with Ed Schultz on RT America.
Terrific.
You're just got such awesome insight and cut right to it with a real breath of fresh air and truthfulness. I appreciate it.
Thank
Good
you,
to
Ed.
visit.
Thank you. Take care.
You bet. Okay, the ground game. Again, we're close. This is a lead that no one expected. 51-43 in the latest poll. Larry Cohen joins us from the Sanders campaign when we come back. Brought to you by Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSafe team. We're back after this.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania, to the auto factories of Michigan, to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
This is Ed Schultz, news and commentary from the nation's capital on this Monday edition. The news on RT America, the news with Ed Schultz, starts tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern. Hope you can join us on Dish and Direct, also on YouTube and on the website, rtamerica.com. All right. The poll numbers are very close. This is the best lead that Bernie's had in Iowa, 51-43 over Clinton. The CBS Battleground Tracker has a 1-point lead for Sanders, 47-46. Martin O'Malley has moved up to 5%. Sanders maintains his wide lead in New Hampshire, 57-38, according to the poll, while Clinton still commands a strong advantage, 60-38 in South Carolina. There's so much work going on around the country, in Nevada, in California, and in Texas. There was a big meeting of labor leaders yesterday over the weekend in Texas where there was a debate. Larry Cohen was speaking on behalf of the Sanders campaign, and he joins us. Mr. Cohen, good to have you on again.
My pleasure.
What did you see in Texas? What are folks saying?
That's amazing. First of all, the level of support, 30,000 Bernie Sanders volunteers now in Texas. That's just volunteers. Saturday night, for the live stream, I was in downtown Austin, outside 1,000 people on a big screen cheering Bernie. And as we know from reports, that kind of thing went on all over the country. Marches in Boston in the snow, over 1,000 people marching in Portland, Oregon. This is for a live stream. What I saw, the main event I went there for was the Texas AFL-CIO had their political meeting. There were about 300 labor leaders from around Texas, and I represented Bernie in a debate there. And incredible enthusiasm. Again, what I saw was it didn't matter what national unions had done or hadn't done. These leaders in Texas were fired up, not all of them, but overwhelmingly for Bernie, and working. I also did a meeting with CWAers, my own union, and, the CWAers who were there for that meeting, about 70 of them, and the work that we're doing. We have boot camps going on in Dallas the next 3 days, training several hundred just CWAers. Here's a state that nobody thought there would even be a Sanders campaign. Yeah. And I believe, we're going to do incredibly well. It's the fusion that we all talk about, and I saw it. Black, Latino, white working people, youth, fired up and ready to work for Bernie across Texas, which is quite something.
I did a town hall, I did a focus group a couple of years ago. About a year and a half ago, I did a focus group in Texas. And all walks of life, we worked hard on getting people in there that would represent every sect of society, demographic and whatnot. They felt to a T across the board that Texas, if they had voter registration the way they have in other parts of the country, that it would be a blue state. That it's only a matter of time when it comes to the diversity of the electorate and also the demographics. And there's been such an effort to suppress the vote in Texas. That's one of the things that the progressive movement has had to face. Hopefully Bernie's campaign can instill some steroids into that effort when it comes to voter registration and getting people out doing what they got to do. Interestingly enough, the Sanders campaign somewhat concerned about, do people understand the caucus because there's so many new people coming into the process? Do they know how to caucus? So the Sanders team has put together a video on the website explaining to people, quote, how to do this. And it's going to be interesting to see if it's effective. They can't do it unless they show up. And the show up is going to be very, very important because there's going to be people who are going to be there that are going to direct Sanders supporters on how to do this as they do it. But this is really going to be the key, the turnout in every single county in Iowa. And the narrative that's out there that I saw yesterday on one of the talking heads was that Bernie's out of the mainstream. I about went nuts when I saw it. I even did a give me a minute and put it on my Facebook. It had over 140,000 views. What do you mean Bernie's out of the mainstream? I want you to respond to that, Mr. Cohen. When you hear Bernie's out of the mainstream, it's almost as if you have to gather yourself to come back and straighten these people out. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think his message actually has become the mainstream for millions and millions of Americans, more than 4 million now, have signed up in some way on one of our websites. And the message of, why does Medicare begin at 65? Why can't it be earlier so that all of us have a simple way to look at health care, at least as a floor for our health care? Why can't we, again, have free higher education at public universities? People forget, and I talked to that crowd, the 1,000 mostly young people in Boston Saturday night about that. When I grew up, Philadelphia Community College had no tuition. More importantly, Berkeley, University of California, the whole system had no tuition. City University of New York, gigantic again, no tuition. Rutgers, where I ended up, almost no tuition. So why was that okay for my generation or my father's generation? Comes back from World War II, GI Bill, no tuition. These aren't radical ideas. These are things we've given up on. And I think, people are saying, wait a minute, what is the American dream? Why would we give up on health care? Why would we give up on higher education and early childhood education? We shouldn't be giving up on those things. And why have we turned this country over to the banks? And why do we have banks that are clearly too big to fail all over again, worse than ever? And so we need to break them up. People are getting this simple, populist, economic message. And also on foreign policy, regime change has not worked, and we need to take a new look. And so when Secretary Clinton, as we call her, talks about her experience, increasingly voters are saying, we don't want coups to take out an elected government in Honduras. We don't want another war in Iraq that she voted for. So, I think the experience she has is a continuity that people want to change. And that's why we're seeing a new mainstream message that's about much more about hope and promise.
Mr. Cohen, what do you think of the Bloomberg conversation, him jumping in as an independent? I'm not quite sure how I understand how he would win any states or how the math would work, but what do you make of it?
I don't see how he wins any states either. So at the end of the day, he's not – he's a pretty smart guy. I don't agree with him on too much. If there was a three-way race with two billionaires and Bernie wins easily. That's what I make of that one. But my hunch is Bloomberg will figure that out too. I think he wants to be president. He wants to be, they never give up on power. It's not enough that he has something like $10 billion. But where does he find his space to come in? People are not going to perceive Michael Bloomberg as, the candidate of middle-class and working-class America.
All right. I know you're going to be in Iowa before and during the caucus. We'll connect there. I'm going to be in Iowa this weekend doing some work down there for RT on the News with Ed Schultz, which we're going to have a number of stories on. So we will connect again. Larry Cohen, great to have you with us.
All the best on RT. Look forward to that. Bye-bye.
You bet. Thank you, my man. More right after this on Ed Schultz News and Commentary.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns.
It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor.
They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up, and the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
John Nichols, Washington correspondent of The Nation, to join me tonight on RT America, the News with Ed Schultz, 8 o'clock Eastern. He's in New Hampshire, going to be at a Trump rally and also checking the pulse on the ground. He'll report on the News with Ed Schultz tonight on RT America, 8 o'clock Eastern. I'm looking forward to it. Hope you'll join us on Dish and Direct, on YouTube, and on the website. Great to have you with us. We are back tomorrow.